almost like a frequency of your soul. Your intuition is the frequency, so you're tuning in to the frequency of your soul. Remember, we're energetic beings, which means that we can
Mm-hmm.
take and give. We can
Mm-hmm.
give and take.
Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to the Art of Being, a sacred space where we dive into spirituality, healing, manifestation, and all the magic of becoming.
We explore what it means to truly live, to grow, to heal, and to be in this ever-evolving dance between our humanness and our higher selves.
I am Bamzi, a mindset and manifestation coach.
And I'm Joy, a wellness coach. We're so glad you're here. Take a deep breath, settle in, and let's journey together.
Welcome back to another episode of The Art of Being. Today, I'm so excited because I have with me Taffiny, who's a spiritualist. She's an intuitive reader. She does a lot of work on energy protection. She does all sorts of work, and she's been doing this for several years now. She's one of those people who embodies being grounded. And you will hear it from our conversation today. So expect an energy that's grounding. And one of the things that we actually talk about is how do you cultivate a practice that grounds you so that you're grounded in your energy, so that you're operating with a much more regulated nervous system, right? So if that's one of the things that you've been thinking about, this is your episode. I hope you listen to this episode with an open heart and open mind. And I hope you take one or two things that you will start to implement in your own life. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Taffiny. Thank you again for doing this. You know, there are like some moments that I really wanted to save, especially from like last week's episode, but I can't. I couldn't save
Okay.
anything. So yeah, we attempted to record an episode last week, but then due to Mercury retrograde, we had an echo issue. That episode is gone. So now Taffiny has agreed to come again and record with me, and I'm so grateful that you decided to do that.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. Again.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So do you want to tell people how we know each other?
Why don't you tell them how we
Yeah.
know each
Okay.
other? Because it's your
we
podcast,
we
right?
actually
So
we actually go way back, dude. You know, it's been 12 years, right? Didn't I met you in
fake
2013,
news.
right?
Fake news. Yeah, yeah. Because that's when I started
2013.
at at
Right.
college.
We go way back, and we've actually collaborated a little bit when we went to undergrad together. She was 2 years behind me, and we collaborated on a few things. You know what I was thinking about? You remember that video we did, the African churches versus white churches?
That video
You
has
remember
so
that?
many views on YouTube. I wanted to remove it because I was like, this is so embarrassing. But then I was like, nah, you know what? Let me keep it up. I had so
It's
much fun. I can't believe so many people agreed to do that video for me.
yeah, yeah, and like it was so fun doing it. It was so much fun. Like when I look back and like I remember specifically. I
Yeah.
just remember, yeah, it was really fun doing it. I think I watched it like a couple of months ago. I went back and it just puts me in this space in time when we were doing it, and it was just really fun. So we did like really
Yeah.
fun things in undergrad. We went to Metanoia. Do you remember? To Florida. I think it was like
That was one of the
2015.
best trips.
Yeah,
It was one of my favorite trips, I think. And it wasn't even
yeah,
overly complicated. It was just
yeah,
one of those things that, like, I'm so grateful that we had a school that
yeah,
offered that kind of thing. We just like camped
yeah.
by the beach for a week or so. And
Yes.
I got invited actually to
Uh,
party. I think it was in Panama City. Like I got invited to party with people, and then I was like, you know what, nah. I'm gonna go to the beach and camp, and it was just like very wholesome, and it's where I met my best friend Hannah May, and I just wouldn't change
oh
anything about
yeah.
it. Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
her. You guys are still in touch? I remember her. She was
Well,
really
best
sweet. I
friend,
remember.
like she's one of my. I have two best friends, and she's like my best friend. And I just went to her
Oh,
wedding last year. I was her bridesmaid last year.
oh,
Yeah,
really? Oh my
yeah.
God, that's amazing. Isn't that amazing that like when you decide to do something, like you don't know what's gonna come out of, and that's why, like, one of the things I love talking about is like make a decision, even if it's like a small decision, right? Like if you're feeling like you're stuck and you're trying to figure out like what to do, whatever, just take that action, right? Take that step, because
Mhm.
clarity doesn't come before any step or whatever, but like you never know like what an action is going to lead you to, right? And that is so beautiful to
Yeah.
hear that, like, that's actually where you met. I remember having
Mhm.
conversations with her on that trip because we had never spoken before. I remember telling her about my crush, which I would not speak of. She
Ooh, I'm having flashbacks.
who you know the crush that I'm talking about.
Yes. I got me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I told her. I don't know why I
That
told
was
her.
so long
I think
ago.
she's like, of course, because she's like, since she's your best friend, like it just shows that she's like I got like a good vibe and energy from for the fact that I'm able to tell her this thing, right? So I'm not surprised that you
Yes.
guys like bonded and became best friends.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she's very good. She's a great listener.
Yeah.
She's a great person. I'm just the
Yeah.
most like
Yeah.
she showed me like a kind of love and friendship that I felt like I hadn't seen, at least in the US, I hadn't had that experience with anybody. And so
Yeah.
and the fact that we're still very, very close up till now,
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's my girl.
When
I'm
this
glad you
comes
had a
out,
good experience too.
take this specific clip
Yes, we're
and
gonna
yeah,
send it.
and be like, we were talking
I'm,
about.
I'm gonna send it to her husband as well and be like, your wife, if you ever,
Yes. Yes.
we love her over here.
Yeah.
No, he's great. He's
Yeah.
great too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But yeah, that's a little bit of how Taffany and I know each other. And then we overlapped again in Boston in between 2018 and 2019 when I
Yes.
went back to grad school and you were still living in Boston and we hang out. 2018 end of the year we kind of spent together. Do you remember? We went out
Yes.
New
Yeah.
Year's.
I
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah.
It was a wild time. I think I had like I had a face peel going on, and like I
Uh-huh.
remember at midnight I think I kissed a girl, like some random girl that I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's so pretty." And then that was like I was just it was a chaotic. It was cute. I was glad that we
Yeah.
spent it together and not like alone. So I was grateful
Yeah.
that yeah, yeah.
That was really nice. And then you went back to Botswana in
Mhm.
2019 spring, right?
Yes. Yeah.
2019 spring. And then I caught up with you like almost a year later and you had transformed. You had done a 180 of like from where you were mentally when I saw you in
Mm, mm,
2019. 2020
yeah.
we had a like a Zoom call or a Facebook call. Like, I think it was like a FaceTime, whatever. And you were this new person, right? I think, I don't know, it was like there was an energy in Botswana, or like I remember you were selling candles and you had gotten in spirituality. And I remember we were talking about death and you were telling me about the show Netflix. But you had transformed. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I had just started my spiritual awakening. I was literally just
Mhm.
in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was I was inspired to see that you were on this path, which I had just begun. And I was like, oh, I'm not
Mhm.
surprised, first of all. And second of all, it's good to have like a friend that's also on the same path as me.
Yes.
So I wanna go back. So I wanna go back to your background, right? Because then I want people to have context, context of your background and what led you to be on a spiritual path. If you can take us back to your childhood, right? Who was Stephanie growing up, right? What are the things,
Mhm.
like, did you know you were always connected? And what are the things you think that led you to who you are now and the work that you do, working with
Right.
clients, helping them awaken and heal?
Okay, I love this. Okay. I'm gonna try and give like the fastest little synopsis, right? Because I think a lot of what we're gonna talk about is my spiritual journey, but there's also like a plethora of other things, so I just don't wanna like veer off course. So ever since I was really young, I felt like an oddball because what happened was, so if for anyone who doesn't know, my dad is Indian, my mom is Botswana. So my dad is Indian, but he's Botswana. So like,
Mhm,
genetically, like my grandparents are Indian, but they moved to
mhm,
Botswana, and like it's that kind of situation. And so he's Botswana in that he was born and raised there, but like he's Indian. And so I always grew up kind of feeling different anyway because my mom was teaching in the US, and so I already had that thing of like I couldn't speak my own language. I just felt very disconnected to that, but I was always a very giddy kind of lively kid because I just like to perform and sing, and I was that kind of I wasn't like over the top and I wasn't quiet, so I was like somewhere in the middle there. And then when we finally moved back to Botswana, I think I was like 3 or 4 years old. And that's when I started like I was in kindergarten, I remember in the learning center. And uh, there was a time where, like, my first memory of God or memory of being connected, we were in kindergarten, and I was like running out to like the playground area. Like, I can see it very clearly in my mind. And I remember just pausing and like thinking to myself. And that was the first time I was like, why am I like, I'm like pausing. And I was like, I feel something is here. And I was like, what the
mm,
heck? And then I just went and played, and I was like, whatever. And I kept
mhm,
it moving,
mhm,
right?
mm.
And then as I went along, as life went along, again, I'm still feeling like an oddball. I don't look Motswana. I barely speak. I don't speak. Let me rather. At that time, I didn't speak any Setswana. In my family, I already felt like like the black sheep because I just was not in it.
Right,
I was just always on the
right,
outskirts. Yeah, I was,
right,
like, always
right.
on the outskirts, like, looking in. And so I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere, even in school. You know, I had friends. I was very lucky, like, throughout my life, I've always had really good friends. I've had that thing inside of me of somehow being able to attract really good people. And so I've always had that thing. But what would happen periodically, like my mom has more stories about this, was that I would like either hear voices or like start to like have this pull towards either doing something or saying something.
Mhm,
So a big example of this was there was a time where when we were living at my grandmother's house, I was just I was just like in the kitchen, like doing nothing. I had never, because you know in Africa it's very normal to have like a housekeeper,
mhm,
very normal to have a housekeeper, and I just never I'd never been to her to her quarters. Like she lived in a small
right.
house in the back in the yard, in the back of the yard. I'd never been in that room ever. Like why would I, like there was no reason for me to be there. But something was calling me there, and I think I was like 6. I was like 6 or something. And I was just like, it was like, go there, go there. I was like, why? Okay. And part of it is like, I wasn't questioning. I just did it. I was just like, okay. And so I had that natural curiosity as a kid. And I went to, and I opened the door. She wasn't there. Again, very strange. This is not very unlike me to
Mhm,
invade people. I was a very polite kid, so I would be like, I'm like the kid that like knocks, says please and thank you. Like that's how my mom raised me. And
right.
so then something said to me like, check under the mattress. I was like, check under the mattress. Why am I checking under the mattress? So I checked under the mattress, and it was like all this jewelry, like my found my mom's jewelry, money, like a bunch of things. And I was like, oh shit. And I closed, and then I like ran away because I was like, I know I'm
Mhm,
not supposed to be here. And then I
mhm,
told my mom, and then they found everything, and she was let go. And so there were like a few instances. It wasn't just one situation, or like a few instances where I would say something and then it would come true later on. And at that time, obviously, like my parents, like no one really understood, like even I didn't really understand what was going on. These impulses. I actually thought there was something wrong with me. especially when I was sensing energy, the sensitivity that I had around me, the spirits that I was able to feel and see. Um, I just thought, okay, because I think we're gonna talk about it in this because I know we spoke a little bit about it in our last recording. I grew up in an abusive household. Me and
Mhm.
my parents are good now, but
Right.
at that time it was a very difficult
Mhm.
situation. And so I was ebbing and flowing in between, like, my mental, my nervous system was so dysregulated, my mental health was in the pits. I My first memory of, like, having true depression of, like, "I don't wanna be here," was around 7, 8 years old, and around that time was actually the time when I started to get curious about what is out there or, like, what is out there. I didn't know what I was doing. Again, I'm just following that intuitive, so I've always been very intuitive person. And so I started to get curious about spirituality and about religion specifically, because that was the lens in which I thought got like where I could reach
Yes.
some kind of
Mhm.
like be like,
Mhm.
whether it's God or consciousness, whatever I was reaching for. So around 7 or 8, because my parents were not religious, they were kind of they were born in the 70s. They were like, we're
Mhm.
gonna be rebel, we're gonna like do what we want. So I had never really like been to church. I wasn't like I didn't never went to the mosque. Like I didn't grow up like that at all.
Right.
Neither
Right.
did my parents. My parents were like, we don't care about this type of stuff.
Mhm.
But I asked for the first time because I was curious and asked my friends at school. Like I would hear them be like, "Oh, I went to Sunday school." I'm like, "What was Sunday school?" And I started being like, "Okay, let me start going." So around 7, 8, I was like, "Can I go to Sunday school?" And my parents were like, "What?" And it wasn't like I was asking for something like crazy, right? It was actually something that would be good for me and good for them. They would get like that Sunday morning, Sundays off. So they were like, "Okay, if we talk to the parents and we know it's safe, then you can go." So I started going to different churches, like with my friends. I'd be like, "Where are you? You're what? You're a Pentecostal? Oh, you're Catholic, like, can I go to Sunday school with you?" And I started doing that very slowly. It wasn't like I was going every single week, but like at least like a few times a year, I was observing. And what I noticed for a long time was that a lot of these spaces didn't allow me to ask questions. A lot of them were telling me what to believe. A lot of these religious spaces were telling me what to believe as
Mhm.
opposed to giving me the autonomy to ask questions and be curious. Like I told you, I was very curious. So I started being like, I don't like that." Like I started reading them in my mind.
Oh
I
my
started reading
gosh.
with my mind,
Mhm.
but I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so my mom, yes, my mom had like affiliation with like Christian Science, at least, which is how I ended up at Prin. But she wasn't like you know what I mean? She wasn't like hardcore
The
in it.
staunch Christian Scientist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm in it, but I'm not like fully,
Mhm.
fully. I think now
Mhm.
she's a lot more religious than she was prior.
Mhm.
And so when I got to Christian Science, I think why it activated me is because for the first time, I was able to ask those questions.
Right.
And
Right.
as a
Mhm.
religion, because they don't have like pastors or preachers or anything like that, it forces you to start to process what the text is saying
For yourself, absolutely.
for yourself,
Absolutely.
and that is
Mhm.
what changed everything for me. I think that's when I
Mm.
started getting even
Mhm.
deeper into
Mhm.
really listening to myself about what I believe and how I believe. And
Mhm.
even Sunday school teacher, he was just a very open, very healthy, like masculine energy for me because again, like I said, I didn't have a good role
Mhm.
model or healthy male energy in my life. So getting that was very good for me. I felt
Mhm.
safe enough to ask those questions. Now
Mhm.
we're gonna keep going further. So then I got through college,
Mhm.
barely got through college. I was like, there's a point where I was feeling out because of how stressed and how much my mental health was
Mhm.
deteriorating, right? I'm a very deeply sensitive person. I didn't know how to ground myself. I had gone through all this trauma, all this pain, abuse, and it wasn't the thing is it also didn't just stop in childhood. I experienced some form of abuse and, RAPE, like I've dealt with some real shit.
Hmm.
I can swear here, right? I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. I dealt with
Yeah.
some like real life shit.
Hmm.
And I so what you were seeing at that time was when I was about to leave the US, it just felt like I felt like I was doing everything that I was supposed to be doing, but the results weren't yielding. And so when I got to Botswana, what happened was that I got tired of being a victim to my circumstance. I had said to myself, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm over this. Uh,
Right, right,
I'm
right.
really over staying
Hmm.
and sitting and ruminating because it just felt like blow after blow after blow. It was a never ending thing. And so what you were seeing when I was in Boston was just a accumulation of years and years and years and
In
years
years,
and
yes.
years of doubt and pain. And then 2020, it was like because we are forced to be isolated, I think that was also part of it.
Yes.
We're forced to be isolated. I had to start to develop this really deep relationship with myself, which I think
Hmm.
got me closer to God. And also
Hmm.
just leaning in. I think I was like, oh, actually, why am I fighting this? Why am I fighting this instinct that is inside of me to follow my compass, to follow what I'm feeling? And once I did that, I think that's when my life just changed entirely. Of course, I
Yes.
have had to deal with challenges since then,
Hmm.
but I really had to make the decision, like you said earlier. Sometimes you really just have to make the decision of, I don't want to live this way anymore. I need something to change. And
Yeah.
that's where I
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like, and this is something that I talk about sometimes, that sometimes you just have to be so sad and so be in the most deep suffering state in order to be like, I can't do this anymore. And that
Yeah.
the saying of like, I can't do this anymore, I feel like it's a surrender, right?
Yes.
Because it's like you have
Yeah.
to be in that state to be able to be like, okay, something has to give, something has to change. And I want to ask you about like, because there was a lot that you were dealing with. There was a lot of heaviness, a lot of that trauma, a lot of that abuse. It's not something, you can just, get over within like a week, a month, or whatever, because it's been accumulating for years and years. And even that decision of like, I can't do this anymore, it doesn't mean that it goes away, right? So I just want to
Yeah.
talk about like how you're able to process all of that heaviness. And I know that like when I last saw you in Boston, you were going to therapy. I remember at the time you had started
Yeah. I
therapy.
had just started.
And
Yeah.
yes,
Thank
yes,
God.
yeah. Yeah. So, of course, I know therapy was like an introduction of you, like experiencing your emotions, naming your emotion, doing all of those things. But I want to understand, like, when you went back, like, what are the things, like, how are you able to move those? Even though, yes, you said, like, I'm done with this, but how are you able to move? Like, because saying is
Mm,
one thing, but there's work involved after the decision, right? How are you able to
yeah.
move through that and be able to get to a lighter place where you're like, okay, I'm fully doing this. I'm fully focusing on myself. And because
Hmm.
I don't want to suffer anymore, right? Because I know there are a
Yeah.
lot of people that are experiencing trauma and experiencing
Hmm.
heaviness, and they feel like this is forever. This is my journey. This is my experience. And they don't know how to move through that and get to a point where they're able to start loving their life.
Yeah. A
Hmm.
lot of it is that when you've been a victim of some kind of abuse or whatever you've been through, let me just say, when you have trauma or like complex trauma, you end up being a victim and feeling disempowered, right? You feel disconnected from being able to make decisions and choices that will change anything. So I would just say that if you're in this space of like, I don't know what to do, because that's what it does. It makes you feel like you can't do anything, is reconnecting to your own power and understanding that you are connected to the larger
Hmm.
consciousness. You are connected to spirit, God, whoever. And so you do have power within your hands to make something happen. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're alive, you can make things change. A lot of change for me has come from rage. I'm not gonna lie, not even just sadness, absolute anger. And I remember being very, uh, I went from being actively suicidal. So, like, I used to actually, like, actively try and,
Yes. Yes.
myself.
Yes.
And I went
Mm-hmm.
from active to
Mm-hmm.
passive
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
anger,
Mm-hmm.
where I was so angry. I remember just being in Boston and being like, you know what the heck? Why would you
Yeah,
bring me
I
into this
remember some
world?
of that. I remember some
Yeah,
of that.
I was
Yeah.
like, why would you bring me into this world to suffer?
Uh-huh.
Like, I was so
Mm-hmm.
mad at God. I
Mm-hmm.
remember being
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
angry. And I did a cheeky thing, which is I decided to live out of
Out of spite.
which is out of spite, which I think is the funniest thing ever, but it's the truth.
But it
It's the
works.
truth. It works because I
Mm-hmm.
started to be like, you know what? Fine, fine. And that is acceptance. This is what we call radical acceptance,
Radical
right?
acceptance,
I
absolutely.
accepted
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So you have to accept where you're at. This thing happened to you. I had to be like,
Right.
these things
Mm-hmm.
happened to me. Cool. But what am I going to do about it now? So you
Mm-hmm.
have to decide, you have to acknowledge and accept all the things that have happened to you, everything that happened prior, but you cannot stay there. Nothing is going to change. This is why it's hard to help somebody that is not open to some kind of feedback, or isn't open to that level of responsibility, right? Because to have power means that you have to be responsible for yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
hard to do
Absolutely.
that. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because I love what you just said, because sometimes it's like, I feel like sometimes we reject our power because claiming that power means you have to do something about it, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
you would rather than assume that power it's outside of you, because then you can blame something, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
this is not speaking about people that are experiencing abuse and they're like in a state of like, that's not what we're
Mhm.
saying. We're just saying like, sometimes like we are powerful beings, we are source energy, right?
Mhm.
Claiming that means that you have to be responsible and take action for your own life
Mhm.
and for your own well-being and for your own state of being. And I absolutely
Mhm.
love that you were able to do that for yourself. So then I want to, talk about like then when you started working with people, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like the journey of you claiming your power back and taking
Mhm.
fully, like taking responsibility for your life and being like, I'm responsible for my well-being. I'm responsible
Yes.
for my experience in this human life, right?
Mhm.
And even though yes, it came off as like it's a spite, but it worked, right?
It works.
So okay, yeah. So then I want to understand then when you decided, okay, I think I've
Mhm.
been able to master this for myself, right? I've been able
Mhm.
to do this for myself, and I feel like it's helping. Okay, now I feel like I want to help people, right? And how that came about, and specifically I want you to also talk about whether there was like doubt involved in when you were studying the journey to help people, because from my experience, one thing that I've experienced is a lot of doubt, a lot of questions that come in my mind, like, who are you to do this? There are so many
Mhm.
people that are already doing this and they seem to be doing better. Like, what do you think you're bringing? Like, who are you to? Like, to do this. So that is like something that I've been able to confront in my own journey. And I'm getting to a place where like it's getting better, but like in the beginning I was really, really doubtful. So I just want you to take us through your own journey of like deciding that you wanted to help people, and then also talk about like that doubt aspect, if you experienced it at all.
Whew, yes. The answer is yes, I did experience a lot of doubt. Part of it was obviously intuitive. Like I said, I'm an intuitive reader, I'm an intuitive worker. And so I just felt very called to help people because I could feel the collective heaviness of COVID.
Right.
At
Mm-hmm.
that time, I told you I'm
Mm-hmm.
very energetically sensitive. Like I can feel when things are changing, and like it's insane. Like even sometimes I'm like, oh, what is that? And then I'll go and research. It's like, oh, there was a solar flare. I'm like, okay, like and
Mm-hmm.
that's how like sometimes how sensitive I can be. Of course, I've gotten better at
Mm-hmm.
grounding, protecting myself, but even with
Mm-hmm.
the retrograde, I could feel
Mm-hmm.
everything. So just to get back to your question about doubt, I had all the doubt. And the trick is you don't wait until you've mastered it. You don't have to master anything to be able to help other people. You don't. Yes, it matters on what you're helping people with, right? I
Absolutely.
can't claim to be, oh my God, like for example, right now I feel comfortable. I'm starting to teach classes and workshops because I feel comfortable in the work that I've done professionally in the last 5 years. However, when I was helping people, this is why I was doing it for free in the beginning because I was really just, it wasn't about me at that point. It wasn't about me, my expertise, what I can offer. It wasn't even about my skill set. It was just that I felt this deep empathy for the world and people were even me, like I was losing people left and right, coworkers, cousins, like, family. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was losing a lot of people around, and so were other people and jobs. Like people were just in a lot of pain, and I felt that collective pain, and I
Right.
just felt this pull to help.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know. Here's the thing, I did, like you said, sometimes you don't know if it's gonna help. I don't know if it's gonna help. I have no idea. I had no idea whether these, because I started out with like free moon rituals. I was just like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I do these for myself. They help me to manifest small things here and
Yes.
there. They help
Mm-hmm.
me with releasing the things. And I used to just do them intuitively. I wasn't like
Mm-hmm.
writing anything down, like
Mm-hmm.
step one, step two. But I
Mm-hmm.
just decided, I was like, oh, if I were to like help someone do this and I offered it to the world, I say, hey, if you guys want one, give me. And at that time, I think I did almost like 300 or something free rituals at that time. And I didn't know. I had to wait for the feedback to be able to know if it works. Of course, I'm not saying do all your work for free. I don't think that's
Right.
realistic.
No.
But it was a lot of doubt, but my need to help people mattered more, or I
Was
felt like
larger.
that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the larger cause was bigger. It was bigger than me at that point. So the doubt was always there. Like the doubt did not go away. Like even when people are giving me feedback, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. Like I would be like,
Yeah.
Husa, okay, great, I'm glad. So I think the doubt it got smaller and smaller and smaller over time as I
Right.
started to lean into this process. So you start to collect evidence of things working out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh, I see
Yeah.
that it helped this person here. Oh, my client is doing very well here. Even with coaching, I had no idea whether or not this was going to help. I was just like, I know what has
Mm-hmm.
worked for me, and I know that one of my skills is connecting, like understanding like the person and then tailoring. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very good at making everything personalized.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this will not work for this person, this will work for this person. I have
Mm-hmm.
that thing inside of me, but I
Right.
didn't know until I was in the process of doing it.
Right. Right. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful because I think what you just said is so beautiful because it speaks to what we were talking about earlier. Like you can't know if you haven't taken the step, right? You
Mhm.
have to take the step in order to know, right? And one thing you also mentioned is you were doing these things intuitively for yourself, which means you're so in touch with your intuition, right? It's not something that you read somewhere and you're like, let me do this. It was just like an intuitive thing, right? And you've always known that you are an intuitive person. So I wanted to talk about your intuition because that's one of
Yeah.
your strongest thing
Mhm.
that you do. You do intuitive readings. And in fact, you did one with me back in November. And I wanted to say that one of the reasons this podcast happened so quickly is because that intuitive reading that I did with you in November, right? When you did that reading with me, I just felt like because when something resonates so deeply, right? That's when you know that it's for you, right? Like as you were doing it for me, like it was so resonating. And I remember we were having this discussion, and I'm like, it makes so much sense. This is something that I've always known. It's something that I've been told by other people. And it felt like, yes, I've always known it, but sometimes you know something and you kind of ignore it and you do what is easiest, right? I
Mm,
wasn't
mm,
corporate. I was doing like what is easiest for me. Like it's helping me navigate this human experience. But I have this side of me that's at the back of my mind. And having that reading with you felt like, oh, it feels like I'm getting permission, as if I needed permission, but that's what it felt like. And then after that reading, I was like, okay, I know what to do, right? And so by the beginning of January, I had already started to actively think about doing this. And I was like researching on like what to do. And so this podcast is partially happening because of like happening right now, and why it happened so quickly because of that reading that we did in November. And I'm so thankful for that. So I wanted to ask about intuition, like how for somebody who hears about intuition, right? And they don't know what is that even, right? Is there a thought?
right.
Is there a like how would you help somebody understand like this is what intuition is?
It's such a loaded question because it's because intuition is something that you feel internally. It's hard to
Right.
explain in words, right? But I would say a very it's a this is how you distinguish intuition from fear and paranoia, is
Mm-hmm.
that it's quiet and it's calm. Your intuition is more very relaxed, so it should be a relaxed feeling. And so the way that I see it, it's almost like a frequency of your soul. Your intuition is the frequency, so you're tuning in to the frequency of your soul. So you're listening, you're kind of feeling what's happening in the body. It's not
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can come out as a thought, but it's a, I think
Mm-hmm.
what would happen thought wise is you would have the thought, and then your intuition will help you understand whether it's something you should go towards.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I've
So
have
if you
this
have the
all the
idea,
time.
it's like, "Oh, is it my idea? Is it an idea that I need to jump on?" And then
Mm-hmm.
if you're like, that feels okay. I feel like I'm feeling pull." For me, it feels like a pull.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's more like it feels like a pull from from my heart center,
Yeah.
because when you think about it, from a cellular level, right, we are carrying memories. Like, we're carrying memories, we're carrying information about our experiences, our ancestors, like that little cues that show us that we are in tune with nature, with our environment. We are here for a reason. And so there are certain things that logic alone cannot explain. So your inner intuition is just your compass of saying, like, how do I listen deeply? Because for me to do these kinds of readings, for me to be an intuitive reader, I have to trust.
Mm-hmm.
I have to trust not only God, but myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I had to start to trust God, trust myself. When
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a reading, I'm a channel. I have no idea
What's gonna
whether
come?
or
Yeah.
not I'm going to be right.
Yeah.
No clue. But I'm trusting everything that I'm feeling, that I'm seeing. Be like, okay, this has to be right. But I'm open to being wrong. I'm open
Yeah.
to being wrong. I'm yet to have someone be like, that was completely off or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if it comes, there's interference, just like a radio. Sometimes there's gonna be interference. It could be how I'm feeling that day. It could be, my mental state. It could be their mental state. It could be something. Sometimes there've been ish situations where a client will lie about the situation because they want to get a specific response from me to confirm their own bias.
Right.
And
Right.
I intuitively will pick up on them like, that feels wrong. Like and this is not right. So there are different ways that can get in the middle of that, but really, we all have this thing in us, and the way that you develop it is just through that self trust and trust of your
Yeah.
whoever you
Yeah.
prescribe to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
hope I
that's
answered it.
yeah, absolutely. That's amazing because, I've had I for me it comes as like a bodily feeling. And I've had
Yeah,
moments where like I know exactly what's going to happen and I ignore it. And of course now like I don't do that, but I used to, where like sometimes it would come as a thought, like, okay, go there. Right? I go there, like I take that path that I haven't taken before and I run into somebody so many times
yeah,
that it happened to
yeah.
me. Like, and I've had moments where like I'm being pulled. I don't know why I'm doing this thing, you know? I'm just like, why are you doing it? If I look back, I'm like, why were you doing that? Right? And I go and then I run into somebody, right? And I remember there was a time that I was traveling, and this is like a really good example that I like using. I was traveling and it was like my body was screaming like, don't leave your equipment in the apartment, right? It was just like a feeling that, okay, don't do that, right? I ignored
Mm,
it. I left my computer, I left my camera, and I traveled.
mm,
I came back, everything was gone.
God.
Everything was
Wow.
gone because I ignored, like, it was
Yeah,
like a really
yeah.
strong feeling, and I did not understand
Mm,
why I was feeling
mm,
like that. But at the time, I wasn't really connected because it was back in 2017, right? So I have those moments, and now, like, I'm learning to really trust. And like you said, it's something that you have to believe and trust, right? And also, it's like a muscle. The more you
mm,
listen, the more you're going to be in tune with it, right? But if you keep ignoring it, like, how are you going to develop it? So then I wanted to ask you, like, other than like exercising that muscle and strengthening it, like, what would you
mhm,
say are the things that block people from tuning in to their
mm.
intuition?
Mm, I would say, like we mentioned before, a huge block for intuition or blocking your intuition is fear. People assume that fear fear doesn't need to be present for you to feel your intuition. No, fear can
Mm,
100% be there, but you just have to learn how to distinguish it. And that's why I said if you're making a decision, if you're feeling this, again, it's a presence, it's a calm presence. Your intuition is not anxiety filled. It can feel like excitement, but it should not feel like you're on edge, like, I have to do this. It
right.
should feel like, hey, you should do this. That's
Yeah.
kind of how it should
It feels like a
feel.
natural pull, right? Right.
Yeah, it's
Like a,
it should feel
yeah.
natural, but for you,
Uh-huh.
especially if you're starting out, right? If you're starting out with
Mm-hmm.
this process, for anyone who's listening,
Mm-hmm.
it might not feel natural because you're not used to it, but
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't feel like you're like on edge trying to move things around. I think overthinking is
Mm,
another huge block. Like if you're question, because part of it is that in order to listen to your intuition, you have to move. How do I explain this? It's like you have to move past the doubt. Like you have to. There's no way around it. Otherwise, you won't do it because it's inspired action, right? It's the intuition is there, so you can take a specific action or do a thing. And so, if you're in this loop of like, should I do it? Should I not? Should I do it? What if I don't? What if this happens? What if that happens? What? And it's like part of it is like in your trying to control the situation. You're giving yourself, it's the illusion that you can control the future and you can control the outcome of the thing. But if you're trusting and you're leaning in, then you're allowing the universe, you're allowing spirit to surprise you with good.
right.
And
Right.
it's almost like you're expecting good things to happen and then they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that trust is really important. And I think
Mhm.
like one thing that you've talked about is that difference between your intuition. It's not an anxiety thing of like the ego. Like it's not an ego
Yeah.
thing, right? It's like much more calm. It's
Mm.
more loving, right? Versus
Yes.
the fear based thing that like forces you to do something because you should do whatever, right? And I think that's really important because that's one thing that, now I like deeply question. I'm like, okay, is that a fearful thing that I'm getting, or is it like a loving, like where is it coming from? Like and sometimes it's like sometimes what helps me is like, do I have expectations? versus like intentions, right? Okay, like what am I intending to do?
Oh, that's good.
Right? What
Yeah.
am I? Is it driven by like this intention that I have, or is because I expect something to come out of it? Right? Sometimes that's like what helps me understand that okay, this is coming from a loving place and it's my intuition versus my
Mm.
ego. Yeah.
Right, because your ego, again, I know we talk about, well, in the spiritual space or wellness space, you may talk about ego death a lot, and I think people kind of, I think they have a warped view of what death is, right? Death is not an ending; it is a renewal. It is a process of renewal.
Mm-hmm.
And so your ego is clinging on to comfort. Like your ego will always cling on to what is familiar, what is urgent, and what will like solidify the identity that you have
Yes.
right now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're evolving, you understand that you're going to change. The only thing that is guaranteed to us in this life really is death and change.
Absolutely. That.
It's
Yeah.
death and change.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
your intuition will always ask you to grow. Your intuition will always ask you to expand beyond what you believe is
Mm-hmm.
true for yourself. It's really gonna push you to be the best version of yourself, whatever that may be, and not out of force, just out of like, I know you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's trusting you as well. Like, so it's not just a one-way street where we're just trusting God, trusting our intuition,
Mm-hmm.
trusting ourselves. It's the other way around where
Mm-hmm.
your body is also like learning to trust you and trust the
Mm-hmm.
decisions that you're making.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And so what you just spoke about, and I think you had mentioned earlier as well, like the anxiety and the overthinking
Mhm.
would really block you from your intuition. But one thing you and I talked about on last week's recording, which got lost, was if your body is not feeling safe, if you're not feeling safe, first of all, like you're not going to be in tune with your intuition because you're on a fight or flight, right? You're not regulated, right? If you're not regulated, like, how are you going to tune in? I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah. So I would say that even when you are feeling unsafe, because I've had like I've had issues with um my nervous system dysregulation for
Mm,
years and years and years, and
yes.
it's something that I still work on as someone with CPTSD and who has
Hmm.
worked through all these things. So you're not disconnected. You are never disconnected from your
You're never,
intuition.
yeah, absolutely,
You are
absolutely.
never disconnected from your intuition. What happens is when you're dysregulated or you have unprocessed emotions, you can't distinguish. So that's the issue, is that you
Mm,
won't have the language in your body, right? Because we're not just it's not up
yes.
here. Your intuition is not up here.
Hmm.
The downloads can come from up here, from the crown chakra, but a lot of the messages are gonna come into the body. A lot of your messages are gonna come into the body. So
Hmm.
your intuition will be there, but you just won't hear it. Again, I'm gonna bring us back to the idea of a frequency, of a radio frequency. You are trying to tune in, but if there are so many things coming, it's like
Hmm.
like it's making
Hmm.
noises, and you're not gonna be able to really listen and get calm and hear that thing. One thing that I will say, like, you know, my dad and I's relationship is very complicated, but one thing that he did with us very early on that I felt was amazing is like my family, we go out into nature. So my family hunters were fishers. And so from a very early age, I learned to sit with what I was feeling. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but that's what was happening. Like you have to get quiet and just like be with the rod, wait for the fish to
Mm,
bite. And so I learned how to like meditate that way in a way and be
mm,
quiet. Even when you're hunting, you have to be very still and
mhm,
quiet to listen. Where's the animal? Like you're following it. You have to be like this. So you have to trust yourself deeply to know that you will get to your desired result.
mhm. Yeah. Oh, that's really I hope hopefully people would find this really helpful, right? Because
I hope
sometimes
so.
I think
I like this
yeah, I
conversation.
think they
It's
will.
been good.
Yeah, I love it because I think like intuition being like your inner compass, like if people tuned in more, like we would collapse timelines like that. You know, I've had
We
stories
are.
where yeah, you know, right? Where people if you're following like your inner compass and you're going that direction because it's your inner compass that knows that you need to
Right.
go this direction. I feel like you're in tune and you're just following that. You're following your desires, like because your desire, right? And it's not, I'm not starting a whole new conversation, but sometimes it's like, sometimes if you're not tuned in, then you go in a different direction and it takes you longer. But if you're tuned
Mm,
in, you know, that's why like a lot of people struggle because they want something but they're not tuned in to be able to follow like a nudge or whatever, and then it takes them, you know, longer to like to get to where they want to go.
right. I think people wait, and I did this as well. People wait to have a blueprint for what they should do. They want that validation,
Oh,
like
that's something I've struggled
of
with for sure. Yeah.
yes, and we
Hmm.
all have. I mean, that's
Hmm.
part of the work that I do with people coming to me for readings and things like that. They want that validation from the universe, and I'm just lucky enough that I've create like I am a channel. I've always been a channel for those messages to come in. So there's no shame around wanting it. There's no
Right.
shame because part of it is like sometimes you're being led to a reader or to an energy worker to get that clarity, so
Yes,
that is also a way to follow your intuition is like, oh,
absolutely.
I feel like I can trust this reader to give me the messages that I need. That is also a way of following. But sometimes you are the blueprint. You are creating it as you go along. You're creating this blueprint because I think a lot about the people who inspire me in life. Like I think about these artists or people who, like for example, listening to the journey of Lizzo, and I did not know that Lizzo was living in her car for a year before she started blowing up. Like she had
Mm.
lost her father, I believe, and like she was homeless for a very long time, but she was pushing. She was really pushing herself during that time. And then she just exploded. So you're not going to know what the fruits of your labor are gonna be, at least in this journey, in this kind of journey spiritually. But you're gonna see like little benefits along the way. And part of it is like a really good benefit of this process is your soul being fed.
Absolutely.
For example, now that you're doing this podcast, you know, um, I'm sure you had corporate, probably felt really nice to have a salary and all those things. But now when you sit down to do these podcasts, when you're having these conversations, it lights up your soul.
Yes.
That is a huge benefit. That is vitality.
Hmm.
That is life giving. And
Hmm.
that is when you start to actually enjoy being here on this planet, when you're doing the thing that God gave you, that
Hmm.
talent. You have a talent for that curiosity, for creating. You're creative. You've always been like this. We worked on a short film together. You've always had that thing inside
Yeah.
of you. And for all of us, even with me, I pushed away music for years. I was like, oh, I'm gonna push it away. And like, but then I realized when I sing, there's so much joy. Like I just feel so good. My heart just sings like I actually get energy, right? Like
Yes.
I feel up.
Yes. Because it's like you're feeding your
And
soul, right? You're giving your soul
yes,
that
yeah.
vitality that you're talking about, life force,
Mhm.
energy. That's
Yes.
beautiful. Yeah. And I want to talk about actually want to talk about because we've been talking for quite a while and I don't want to leave this conversation without talking about like one of the biggest things that you talk about in your work, and that is energy and protection, right? Which like we touched
Yeah.
on a little bit last week. So I'm
Mhm.
shifting just gears so that we also
Mhm.
talk about this. So one of the things that you and I talked about is how like if you're like a light worker or an empath, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes you might get drained by certain environment, by certain
mm,
people. So I just
mm,
wanted to
mm,
understand like what is happening when somebody is, and like how does somebody even know that, okay, like this
mm.
energetically I'm being drained? Because sometimes like you don't even know that that's happening. And I've been in places where like I
Yeah.
don't know, like I'm literally don't know what's happening, that I'm being drained by certain environments, certain people
Mhm,
and
mhm,
whatever.
mhm.
What is
Yeah.
happening then? Like how can people start to understand that they need to protect their energies?
Right. Okay. So there are many different ways in which what I say, what I guess I'm not the only one who says this, but um, your energy leaks, right?
Mhm.
Because we are energetic beings
Mhm.
inherently. So
Mhm.
when you are going out into the world, you are either putting out like you're putting out your energy towards something, someone, some situation. So when you even when you're going to the grocery store, when you talk to that cashier, you're exerting energy through your speech, through your
Yes.
movements. And when you're
Yeah.
walking, you're exerting your energy in
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
right? So for me, a leak can look like um some form of self-abandonment where you're either
Mm.
saying yes when you really want to say no. So if someone says, "Hey, can you do this thing for me?" and you're like, "Sure," even though you know that
You know you
you
don't
know.
want to do it. Yeah.
And here's the thing, you don't have to always do things that you want to do. You know what I mean? Like that's the reality of life is that sometimes we're gonna do stuff that we don't want to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just the way things are, or like you have to help somebody. It gets in the middle of your plans. Okay, fine.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
for me, it's when you're giving away you're consistently giving away your energy without replenishing,
Mhm.
and when you're around people that, again, it's like we're going back to that intuition feeling, getting
Mhm.
back to the body. When you're
Mhm.
in a draining conversation with somebody, the way that you would notice it is when you leave or when you stop talking to that person, how do you feel? Just just notice. Just notice how do I feel after this? Do I feel energized? Because there are people who you get into the room, like for example, I'm talking to you, I'm like, Bamzi, and I know I'm gonna leave this conversation feeling like, wow, guys. And there are some people, so remember we're energetic beings, which means that we can
Mhm.
take and give. We can
Mhm.
give and take. So we're
Mhm.
in conversation and we're giving and we're taking. But some people are just take, 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 take,
Mhm.
take. Most people have no idea that they're doing this
Mhm.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Even you, even me, I was like, wait, what are you talking about? So just having that connection, just noticing how you feel. Boundaries are an amazing way to protect yourself, right? A boundary is not trying to control somebody else. I think that is something that keeps coming up in like my classes and like coaching is like people become afraid to set a boundary because they feel like they need to people please or
Mhm.
they want to like they want to appease people because it keeps us safe. Appeasing, people pleasing, I'm not shaming it. I am a former former people pleaser, but that's another way for your energy to leak because your your energy is your attention. So if you like where you're putting your attention on someone else, how they feel, how they are, how they that is another way to just like push it away. Um, what else can I say? I do a lot of rituals with like some like herbs and salt is another like from a spiritual place like salt is a very powerful conduit for protection, like being able to cleanse yourself. There's way like there are certain as we know, like every single thing on earth is like made of material that
It's
was
energy.
made on
Mhm.
earth, is
Yeah.
energy, and so everything carries its own frequency, and we have discovered over the years that certain herbs, certain materials will ward off these more lower frequency things, right? Because
Yeah.
again, when you're protecting yourself, it's not that you're protecting yourself from only bad things. It's just protecting yourself from things that are not aligned with where you want
With
to
you,
be.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. That's so important. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
mm.
And
And I
actually,
tell
so
people,
yeah. So sorry to interrupt you because I want to ask you before you start telling people. I think like as you were speaking, I was thinking about like family. I was thinking
mm,
about how family sometimes, because sometimes it feels like, okay, somebody is my family, right? And it can be
mm,
so hard to set boundary with a family member, right? With friends, sometimes you're gonna be like, okay, that friendship ended, that friendship, whatever. But with family, sometimes it can be so complicated because
yeah,
this is your family member. So as you were speaking, I was thinking about like how hard, and this is something that I've experienced some myself, and I'm asking from experience. Like, if
yeah.
you have you worked with clients who like sometimes it's hard to set those boundaries and also to protect their energy because they're dealing with complicated family dynamics, right? So I don't know if that's something you
Mhm.
can speak about.
Oh, I had to do it. I I had to do it. I have very complicated family dynamics, and I personally had to do it. I actually think a lot of the clients that come to me somehow have similar like
Mhm.
wounds that are needing to heal to mine. So yes, I've had to work with
Your
clients
soul
that have to
clients.
deal with it. Oh yeah, my
Yeah.
soul clients. Ah man. So if
Hmm.
y'all are watching this, you better be watching this podcast. But
Yeah.
but like if y'all are watching, like
Yeah.
so what happens is that I think we're trained to put ourselves on the back burner, especially if you're a people pleaser or you have this tendency, if you're someone that's polite or kind, like you want to stay nice and kind and all those things that they we've been trained to kind of see agreeableness as a way to keep the peace and the harmony, but it actually harms you to not consider your own needs. So the way that I position my clients is that I say to them, hey, I'm not saying that you have to deny that either your mother or your father or your sister or whoever it is, that their opinion matters. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm asking you to hold space for both. Hold space for what you need and hold space for what they need and decide whether or not you can participate. You have agency because a lot of the clients that are coming to you now that like recover that inner child, because I do inner child healing work as well, inner child
Hmm.
healing sessions. So they're now adults and they have this autonomy. And I start to remind them that, hey, you are allowed to say no. You're allowed to set a boundary because what it does, it helps both of you. They might not like it. Your family might absolutely hate it for you, but you have to become your biggest defender now. You have
Hmm.
to protect your own spirit, your own aura. And if you know that this is draining to you, you don't like to gossip, you don't want to be in the drama of whatever's going on in your family, it's okay to check out and be like, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this just for myself. It's the fear of disappointing people or disappointing your family. And what I can say to you is like, if you want the healthy family dynamic, you have to start the process. You can't wait for your family to change and then you're gonna jump, oh, we're gonna be so harmonious. You have to show them by example that I'm not gonna put up with this kind of treatment actually.
Absolutely.
If you can, of course it's difficult when if you're or still
Hmm.
living in the
Hmm.
same household as your parent.
Hmm.
But there's again where you have to remind yourself of how much power you have, and you're not telling people how to act. You're not telling people, hey, don't do this. You're
Hmm.
saying, I am not participating if you act like this.
Hmm.
And that's a whole different ball game. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I would say.
That's so amazing. As you were talking, like I feel like in the beginning, you really have to be at peace with the fact that you might be a villain, right? Because all of a sudden,
I mean,
like
look
when
at the
you
hair,
decide,
girl.
yeah,
Look at my
you're,
villain
mhm,
era hair.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, that's one thing that I've had to come to terms with. Because in order for you to be able to be this version of yourself that's healing, right? That's embodying like what you want to embody, right? Those boundaries are necessary. But
Mm,
when you set them, especially in the beginning, you'll become a villain because all of a sudden you're a different person than you were. The way you used to interact with them is not the same way that you're interacting with them. And that can be really hard. And if you're not willing to be the villain, that can be hard because then you want to stay in the same, you just go back to the same dynamics because you're not willing to disappoint and be the villain in someone's reality, in someone's story. So yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest things that I've had to learn, and I'm like now I'm at peace with like being the villain, to be honest,
yeah,
because otherwise it's not gonna work for me. My state of being is gonna be affected.
yeah. And also something that I think about often is that that villain title, right? I think we all have the capacity for hurt, like harm, and we're not absolved from being harmful people.
Hmm.
So that idea of you being a villain in that person's story, a lot of the time, if it's because of a boundary, it's a projection of what they're thinking. Because
Yeah.
you just have to know your own intentions. If you know for yourself that what you're doing is out of love for yourself and also for them, because then they have parameters now of how they should treat you, or they have a it's you're even give boundaries are even giving someone a rule book and be like, hey, here you go. You don't have to question it. You don't have to ever be like, oh, where's Tap's head at? You know exactly
Hmm.
what it is because I'm telling you. It cleans the slate for everyone to get on the same page. Boundaries allow everybody to get on the same page about
Yeah.
how each person wants to be treated. And what it is
Hmm.
respect. And a lot of people have problems with boundaries, either don't have boundaries themselves, right? Because then they're like, wait, what do you mean? Like, why would you, like, what's that? Or they they don't want to change their ways. Like, they just want to be the way that they are. And that's fine. That's okay. But what they can't do now is expect you to participate if it's
Hmm.
harmful for you. That is
Yeah.
unfair. You have to
Hmm.
recognize that as unfair. And the only person that can get justice for you now as an adult, as a person now, is you. You're the only person that can stand up for yourself now.
Yeah.
Um, and why not? You're
Hmm.
worthy of that. You're worthy of
Hmm.
protection. So that's why I
Right.
said you have to take it very seriously because no one is gonna take that
Yeah.
as serious as you do. It's not
Yeah.
a joke. It's not a joke because I'm just saying this as a deeply spiritual person. When someone is draining you to a point where your health, like my health, deteriorated, and even like if you're dealing with maybe darker entities of like narcissism and crazy things like that, um I'm not talking about people who are like actively getting help and have narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people who lean into like the
Hmm.
true villainy. um
Hmm.
this is where people start to get like thoughts of suicide and be like, "Oh my gosh, I just want like I can't take this anymore," kind of thing. And so your energy is sacred. You have to start treating your energy as this sacred thing that you've been given. And that's what I do now.
Yeah. I really love that. And I think like one thing that can make people struggle with that is like if when you're an empath, especially sometimes because you're feeling other people's experiences and you're feeling the emotions, right? You see people suffer, and whether they're like a family member or a friend, this is something that I've struggled with. It's like, okay, I see that person suffering, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's like I want to I want to help, and that means you're putting your energy there. But like if you're constantly having to do that and do that and do that and take that on, you're not doing yourself any justice. Even if you think like, okay, I'm helping, like you're doing it at the cost of yourself. of your own well-being, right? If you're constantly
Mm.
draining yourself. So I wanted to then talk about like how do people that are used to identifying with other people's suffering and other people's pain and taking that on, how can you start to disidentify with that so that you can, prioritize yourself? Because I really think it can be tricky, because if somebody is like a loved one especially, it can be really hard for you to be like, I don't want to help, because it kind of goes against
Yeah.
you the way maybe sometimes you see yourself as a person who helps others, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we can always, if you can help, help, right? If you can help, help. But also, sometimes I think we think that we are the only solution.
Yes, I've struggled with that for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
sometimes I've been in a place where I was made to feel responsible for everyone else's issues,
'Cause
and
you're the
not just
firstborn.
responsible. I'm the firstborn.
Yeah.
I'm the firstborn, and so I was like in the middle of everyone's BS. Like I was just in the center, and so it was very difficult for me to detach myself from other people's pain. Gape, I feel like the way that I'm just gonna say my mom is so much better about this, by the way, now. She's Hey man, when you grow, you force your parents to also grow. Guys, with you sometimes. If
Yeah,
that
'cause if you're
if
gonna
that way.
interact with me, you better
Yeah, like I'm
get
like,
on.
hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my mom
Mhm,
also, she's also an empath. I don't know if
mhm.
she would call herself that, but she's an empath. And she would do this thing where she would, oh my gosh, that person is going through this thing. And like she would just be distraught over other people's issues. And then she would project it onto me where she'd be like, oh my gosh, did you hear that this thing is happening? And then I would feel like I need to feel like down for like on their behalf. So the way that I rectified that feeling is that I realized that I can hold space for other people's pain without carrying it for them.
Yes, yes. That is so
So
important.
and that holding space, sorry, and that carrying someone else's pain doesn't necessarily mean that I care more. That is something that I thought I had to do. I thought that if I worried more, it meant I cared more.
Yeah. Mhm.
And those two things don't go together. And I realized, oh my gosh, I need to ground myself. I'm actually a lot more helpful to other people when I can ground myself in my own energy and I don't carry that pain, because if I'm always in pain for other people, how can I influence? How can I change that? How can I be helpful? And also being able to say, I don't know if you've ever had the situation where you ask for help and someone does it begrudgingly.
Mhm.
That hurts a lot. So when you say yes to helping, or you're able to like because being empathetic doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like now carry people's pain on your back. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You can definitely be like, oh my gosh, I see your pain, but I don't have to feel it for it to be real and
Mhm,
for it to be valid.
mhm. Yeah. That
Yeah.
honestly takes a lot of, like, awareness and intention of being
Mm,
like I honestly, these days, I tell myself I don't have to carry that. Literally, I say those words. I don't have to say them aloud, but I say them in my mind that I don't have to carry that, right? I can empathize and, just feel. I don't know if it's bad is the word that I wanna use, just to like, see their experience, but I don't have to take that on. I really have to remind myself, right? It takes
mhm.
a lot of that, reminding yourself so that you don't find yourself carrying it, especially if you're in the beginning of the journey. of trying to disidentify. It's something that you actively have to do in order for you to be able to notice immediately before you start taking that on and making it your burden, right? But that's so beautiful. I think one thing you mentioned is that you do a ritual of grounding yourself, because that grounding yourself helps you stay grounded and you can hold space for them. And so I wanted
Yes.
to ask about like the rituals that help you ground yourself so that you can stay in a good like state of being, so that you are like your
Mm.
nervous system is regulated, you're not anxious, you're not, experiencing any of this discomfort. So I wanted to talk about like some of the rituals that you do to make yourself stay protected and grounded.
Yeah, no, it's great. Again, I think they've changed over the years. But something that I like a huge go-to for me, because again, I've also been given the gift of being a big brain. I overthink a lot. So well, for me, I always say if you're too much up here, like drop into the body.
Mm,
If you're overthinking, drop into the body. So for me, I will do either some kind of breath work because that helps me a lot. I used to have a lot of chest issues, lung issues, smoking, like a lot of stuff. So for me, breath work helps me ground, just like breathing, really, really breathing, taking in that breath. When I'm overwhelmed, I have to go outside. And it's not go outside to concrete. I need nature. I need
nature.
the soil. I need water. I need to put, you know, when they say touch grass, I literally go and I
Hey,
touch grass.
touching grass is
Like,
so
no
good.
joke,
Yeah.
touching grass. I
Yeah.
throw my shoes, throw my shoes,
Yes.
put my feet in the
Hmm.
grass, and I'm like, okay, thank God. Like, okay, cool, I'm good again. And it's important for us to do that as human beings because we are like we are so connected to nature. And even when you're like one thing that I do as well is one of the first things that I do when I reach a place, a new place where I'm living, I go talk to the trees and I go and see which
Mm.
trees are in the vicinity because trees are one of our oldest ancestors. They've been here for all, especially those
Yes.
old long trees. They carry so much information, like kind of that energetic. So they've
Yes.
absorbed years and years and years of information. So
Uh-huh.
I go and I speak to the trees. I will just greet them, I just greet them, speak to them, talk to them. Another good grounding technique, if you have anything that's in your heart that's heavy, go and tell the trees. They will alchemize it for you. You don't even have to do anything. You just tell them what happened. You don't have to ask them for anything. They will help you because
Yes.
what trees love is acknowledgement. I
Hmm.
noticed, like tree spirits, they love acknowledgement. So even just seeing that they're not just like discarding them as that like nothing. Acknowledge the trees, thank them for that service, and keep it moving. So there are
Hmm.
many different ways, you can do. One thing that helps me, tapping. EFT tapping for nervous system regulation, life changing.
Absolutely.
Um, I
Absolutely.
cleanse myself with, I do smoke cleansing again, like I'm a little bit of a herb girly.
How
I
do
don't
you use
know. We'll see.
sage? Mostly,
Oh,
what
for
do you?
cleansing,
Mhm.
I only use sage when it's been gifted to me. So I've had certain situations where white sage has
Mm.
been gifted to me because it's over farmed or something like that. And so I know in the indigenous Americas, like they try and preserve it. But we also have like different versions of sage in Africa. So in Botswana, we have like an indigenous herb that is very close to sage. It's not umpepo because umpepo is different, guys. People use umpepo for smoke cleansing. I'm like, guys, don't do that. Wait, you can, but umpepo is for calling answers. It's for calling your ancestors. So if you use umpepo and you start to see things moving and like just relax. It's not for
I I'm
cleansing.
sure we have that in Kenya, but I don't know what that is. It's Mpepo.
Yeah,
I'll
mm,
look that up. Yeah.
e- every region of the world has its own herbs that are for cleansing and for protection. This is just I feel like
Mhm.
the way like God made the world is for this, for us to
Yes.
have these resources available to us. So I would love for you to, as you're on your journey, get deeper into your lineage, your DNA, connect with those kinds of
I
herbs
was
because
thinking
it
about that
changes
this morning. Yeah.
everything, everything.
Mhm.
Work with the soil where you were born, like it really does a lot.
Mhm.
Another way to you were asking about herbs. I use personally, I'm more of like a rosemary kind of person. I use a lot of incense. I use lavender as well. Like I dry lavender. You can use mugwort, like that different bundles that you can even Google. People can Google it and be like, what can I use other than white sage? It's just that I think white sage has been popularized by Western spiritualists, but it's not the only it's not the only
Mhm.
way to soul cleanse.
Yeah.
There's different ways. I think grounding is really gonna also depend on who you are as a person, right? Like not everything works for there are some people that need to write to ground. You know, like there's some people who need to dance. Like I love to dance, but for
Or
me
sing in the
dancing is more
shower, right?
or sing in the shower, but that's more of
Mhm.
a expression, that's more of a like that's more of like releasing. Whereas when you're grounding, you're a lot like you're really like how do I explain this? I'm a very visual person. So like if you imagine like a meter, like if this is your base and this is your meter and your energy is going like this. It's going like this, going like this. When you ground, you're allowing it to stay in one place.
Mhm.
You're just
Yeah.
grounding it there. And so you can agates, if you have agates, we have one of the most popular agates in the world is a Botswana agate. So those are very
Mhm.
powerful stones to work with grounding. Even just basking in the sun, guys, that can just change your whole day. Um, yeah, there are many different ways.
Yeah.
My rituals, I intuitively decide what they will be depending on what I
Mhm.
need
Mhm.
for the day. So yeah.
Yeah. And so if somebody was listening to this and they're getting
Mhm,
started on their
mhm.
own healing journey, awakening journey, like what would you say to them that we haven't talked about?
We haven't talked about. I would say if you're like starting at the beginning, slow down, slow down. You will get to where you need to go. I think that was it, is that there's this need for us to rush the process and move very quickly because that's like the promise of capitalism is that if you move quickly, you get fast results. I have gotten so much better at slowing because that's gonna help you with your intuition, right? When you can slow down and listen to your impulses, listen to the you're listening to the world, the sun, the earth. You're literally listening to the entire earth when you slow down. So I would say start small, like pick one or two practices that you do every single day because that was part of it is I had to really learn how to distinguish between discipline and devotion. And I I was gifted with like, you know, a few mentors that helped me to do that and being like, how can I commit to it is a commitment to yourself. Discipline really is a commitment to you because you deserve it. You deserve a life that is different from suffering or outside of suffering. You deserve to thrive. So
Yeah.
start small, be consistent. And it's not about healing. I feel like people think healing is about being perfect or like
Yes.
perfection.
When
And it's
I got
not.
started, that's what I used to think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like about being this yeah, because there's this view of like be a guru and like
And
you
you're
have
not
to
triggered
be
anymore. Like
enlightened.
you
Yeah,
can
you
do
have to be
whatever and like
enlightened.
it's love and light. There's no triggers.
Love
You're
and
living
light.
rainbows, sunshine. It's all good.
But when you start to do shadow work, you understand that it is about the dark and the light. They coexist and they have to. And this is
Yes.
how you find
Yes.
balance. Healing is about becoming more of yourself. Alignment is becoming more of who you are
And loving
inherent.
yourself as you
Yeah,
are.
and that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you
Yeah.
are.
Mm-hmm.
And every
Yeah.
phase. That's what I like to say. It's like loving
Yes.
yourself in every phase. And yeah.
Yes. When I like honestly when I realized that that's what it's all about, it's even when
Mhm,
like I didn't show up the best way on that day, like I still love you. I still love and accept you. And I realized that I think it really transformed me. But this
mhm,
has really been beautiful. And this being the Art of Being podcast, I wanted to ask you one last question. You know, we're conditioned to do, right? But and we're like, instead of like we're human beings, we're human doing. You know, that's how we're conditioned. So, this being the
mm,
Art of Being podcast, how do you practice being? Like, I know we've talked about rituals, but there's that of like, I'm being, I'm not like sometimes I don't need to do, right? So, how do you
uh-huh.
practice being?
It's funny because in your question, there's still an element of doing. How do I practice being?
Right,
You don't
right,
have to
right.
practice.
Yes, yes, yes.
You have all you have to do is exist in the space. Presence is your friend. Being present is all you need to be. So I would say if you wanna like practice, like you said, I would just like find pockets in your day to not feel the need to do something. Like one of my most viral tweets was I think I said something because I remember Alicia Keys shared it and I freaked out. Like I was like,
Really?
yeah, I was like, what is going on? I
Girl,
showed
you
my
are
mom,
big on
I was
Twitter.
like, I was like, oh my god. No, she shared. Funny enough, it was like someone else. She tagged the person that posted, but didn't tag me. I was like, what's going on? So I
Yeah.
remember I took a screenshot. I took a screenshot because I was like, Alicia Keys. She said she shared it on her story, right? The quote that I was thinking about. It's one of my most. Apparently, I have a few viral tweets,
Mm-hmm.
but it says the guilt from not being productive is so daunting and unnecessary. So I was just talking about how we don't have to be in this rat race all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite songs, I'm gonna send it to you just for yourself to have.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's called No Time Like the Present, but it says no like Know.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like you don't have to, just like a flower doesn't have to prove why it exists, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to prove why you exist through
Yeah.
doing, through action. You just have to know inherently that you are worthy and be.
Yeah.
I hope I
That's
answered the
really beautiful. I
question.
love that. I love that. You know, just think of babies and remind yourself like they just exist in their pure conditional love and, you know, they know that they're
And they're taken
valuable.
care of.
Yes, yes. And I wish we could go to
Mhm.
that. So, Taffany, I honestly enjoyed this conversation, and you have to come back because there's a lot we have to talk about. We haven't talked about relationship. This is so much to talk about, right? And I want to deep dive into some of the things, you know, we both experience and just have more like conscious conversation. So we would have to have you back. But for now, like how if somebody was listening to you and they were like, I want to work with that
Mhm,
person. I love that
mhm,
energy. How can they
mhm.
find you?
All right. No, that would be amazing if people come through from this podcast because I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me. You can find me on social media. It's just the Tribe Goddess on all platforms. I will be posting more video content coming up. But yeah, on TikTok, on Instagram, and I have all the links that you need there to book with
Yes.
me if you are in Lisbon, if you're visiting or something like that. I also do in-person readings
Yes.
at Asha's place right now at Asha's place. I have a few like freebies on my shop. I have something. There's a lot. You just go and look at the links and you can find how to shoot me an email, shoot me a message, and
Yeah.
we can find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to put them in the description of the podcast so that people can just click and like if they find you on social media, then it's going to be easier for them to find other links where they can work with you.
Mhm.
So I'm going to put them in the description. So if you've been listening to us and if you want to get in touch with us, either myself or of Taffiny, you can find our information in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in. Give us feedback on Apple and on Spotify, and comment on like what we talked about. Like, is there anything that inspired you? We would love to know, right? Because I think this conversation has been amazing, and I feel like people can learn one or two things about like their spiritual practices, right? And so we really
Mhm.
do want to hear from you. If you've been watching on YouTube, leave us comments down below, like this video, and we will see you on the next episode where Joy will be back to co-host with me. But for now, it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Taffiny, for being here today.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Yeah.
everybody.
Bye. We hope today's conversation resonated with you, brought you a sense of clarity, and maybe even challenged you to reflect further on your healing and spiritual journey.
If it touched something in you, we'd be so grateful if you left us a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And if you're on YouTube, share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your reflections or suggestions for future topics.
You can find our socials and email in the episode description. We always love hearing from you. Until next time, take gentle care of your soul, mind, and body.